Hi, good afternoon. It is Saturday the 12th of March 2016 and right now I want to talk about three books that I'm reading. The first one here is one I've just started today, but I'm loving it already and I'm hardly surprised because I've been meaning to read this trilogy for ages, and this is the first book of the trilogy, which is Labyrinth by Kate Mosse, and so far I've only read the prologue, which introduces us to Alice, who is a volunteer on an archaeological dig, and she runs across this mysterious cave with illustrations of a labyrinth on the wall. And then into part one, we switch points of view from the present, or 2005, which is 11 years ago now, to 1209 in Carcassonne, which is the seems to be the main focus of this sort of location of this trilogy, and all I know so far is that the medieval part focuses on a woman called not Alice but Alace, who is a French woman living in Carcassonne, and I'm sure I will talk about this book and the other two in the trilogy more once I've started reading them. I don't have the second book with me at the moment because it's at my mum's, but I do have the third book, which is called Citadel, and this one is based I don't know if it's entirely based or partly based in 1942 during the Second World War, and they are which was during the occupation of France, and that's a subject I'm very interested in, and something I want to read more about and write about, because a couple of years ago I started writing a novel for NaNoWriMo about the occupation of the Channel Islands. So this might, when I get onto this third part of the trilogy, it may spark my interest back up in that story that I started writing about 4 or 5 years ago now. And I know from quick research that the second part of the trilogy has mentions of the occult and tarot, which is another thing I'm interested in. So I probably should have started reading this trilogy a long time ago, but they are huge books, especially Labyrinth, which is huge and hardback, and it's actually the illustrated edition, and it is very, very pretty. I'll just show that. Sure, I'll show this off properly at some other time. Anyway, okay. And the other two books that I'm reading, the first is, they're both light books, and the first is The Beauty of Murder. It's very reflective because it's a library book and it's got plastic sheet on it. And this one is about a young man called Stephen Killigan, who has recently got a job as a philosophy lecturer at Cambridge. And one night he's drunk and he stumbles upon the body of a young woman who went missing, I think, a year beforehand. And he reports the finding of the body, because but when the police get there, the body's gone and there's no sign of it ever being there. so nobody believes him. They think he's either lying or he's, he was drunk and he didn't know what was going on. And he does and he starts digging, and this leads him onto the trail of a time-travelling killer, and I love the writing. It's funny. It's like sort of reminds me of sort of Douglas Adams type writing, because it's very conversational, and the sort of Cambridge connection with like sort of like the first Dirk Gently novel, and so. And the third book here is The Badge by Jack Webb, which is a non-fiction novel, well, not a novel, but a non-fiction book, which is about the sort of 40s and 50s LA police force, and sort of the crimes they investigated, and sort of the different parts of the force, and sort of the classic film noir, or like if you ever played the game LA Noir, it's that sort of era, Black Dahlia, and it like even has a introduction by James Ellroy, who is sort of very famous for writing mystery novels, crime novels based in that era in Los Angeles, and it's very interesting read, and I wanted to read it because I've replayed LA Noire recently, and I'm interested in reading sort of true crime now, because I recently got very, very into listening to the podcast Serial, particularly the first season, which is a reporting of a true life murder mystery, and so that's, I've got a few other true crime books lined up to read at some point, but at the moment I'm concentrating on these three. I've got millions of other books I've started reading, but sometimes I finish books, sometimes they just sit there on the shelf half read for years. But hopefully these three I'll finish in the next week, 10 days or so, before I go home for Easter. Especially when I finish Labyrinth, because the second book of the trilogy is at my mum's house, and I can pick it up when I'm in Sheffield over Easter.